went along to see Emmylou Harris and the Hot Band, and I was a big fan. I played with some of the guys in LA in some of the bars I'd been working, and I'd seen them play once or twice before, and of course my hero, James Burton, was playing guitar with her. I went backstage afterwards, and they said, "Oh, Albert, well, just the guy we were thinking of. You know, we're looking for we need someone to take James's place. He's going off to play with Elvis Presley for a couple of weeks. Can you do it?" I said, "Wow, yes." And so I was supposed to rehearse and maybe go along and see a couple of gigs or whatever. Anyway, I got a call like 2 days later. They said, "James has got the flu, you're playing tonight." I said, "Oh, okay." So we had like a 2-hour sound check, and there I was at the deep end. And apparently there were these frantic phone calls going on for the next week between James and the band. He couldn't make his mind up if he wanted to play with Emmylou or play with Elvis. And of course, he thankfully for me, he decided to stay with Elvis, which was good in the short term, but not in the long term, as we all know, because poor Elvis passed away the next year. But I ended up with Emmylou, and I realized at that point I was playing in a band, a great band, playing the kind of music I loved, and living in America. So I guess from that moment on, I was there. That was early '76. So I did that for a couple of years or more, and the only reason I took a break from it was to rework my solo album. I'd run into Jerry Moss at a gig. I did a short tour with Joan Armatrading, and she was on A&M as well. And he said, "Oh, I'd really like you to finish that record." And I said, "Yeah, thank you. I'd love the chance to work on it some more, you know." So I did the record with the help of Emmylou's band, and did that in Los Angeles, and had to decide what to do. And I hadn't really been a frontman before that, and I thought, well, am I going to try and put a band together here, or I can't really get back with Emmylou. She's got another guitar player now. It would be unfair of me to try and, elbow him out of the band, So I happened to find myself back here again, doing an album with a guy called Mark Benno. He was from Texas, and Eric Clapton was on the sessions, plus a couple of his band. And we had a great time for a few days, and Eric said, "Hey," "I've just done a tour without a second guitar." He said, "I'd really like, do you want to come on the road with me, And this is around the time of Lay Down Sally, so you needed somebody to do that, you see. So I said, "Yeah, great." So there I was on the road with Clapton, but most unexpected, I have to say. And we did a big tour of the States, and at the end of that tour, he fired his whole band except me. And I thought, "Oh, what's going on here?" He'd had them for about 9 years. They were all from Tulsa, I think. He called them the Tulsa Tops. And I don't know, I guess he just fancied a change. And I think he liked the idea of playing with an English guy again, So he got a whole English band. He got Gary Brooker from Procol Harum, and Chris Stainton, and Henry Spinetti, and things were great for a couple of years, and he fired all those guys, and I managed to survive that purge too. So I soon came to the realization at that point that, job security isn't the best here in this band. So after 5 years, I got fired. He actually let me go. So. And I'm not sure really why. Maybe I think he thought I was having an affair with his wife, but I wasn't, But he was drinking a lot of the time, so you imagine all kinds of things, So anyway, we by this time, this was 84, 85, and I'd just. The Everly Brothers had just started to talk to each other again. They hadn't spoken in 10 years, and during those 10 years, I'd done a few things with Don. In fact, I'd done a tour or two with him where I was an Everly brother, I was singing harmony with him, including some live TV where he threw me in at the deep end. You're going to sing with me on this, aren't you? I said, you're kidding, aren't you? So there I am doing all I have to do is dream and wake up little Susie, on live TV. So, but I always hoped that if the Everly Brothers got back together, that I'd get to do just one show and just to say that I played with the Everly Brothers. So we did that reunion concert in '83, and the next year they called again and said, right, we're going to do an album, we're going to go on the road. I thought, wow, okay. And, knowing how volatile they both were, I didn't think that this isn't going to last, But it actually lasted for 25 years. So that was a really good period of my life, working with those guys, Let's see, about 13 years ago, I met Bill Wyman for the first time at a Christmas gig, a Gary Brooker Christmas gig, and I sat in with him. And he called me to do some overdubs and some tracks he'd recorded, and then he called me again and said, hey, you want to go on the road? And I said, yeah, sure, okay, So that was, as I say, 13 or 14 years ago. So since then I've been playing with Bill Wyman's Rhythm Kings. And about 25 years ago, a friend of mine, Jerry Hogan, steel guitar player, he used to have a steel guitar festival in Newbury in Berkshire. Every year, and he'd have visiting American steel players come over and play, and one year he decided to have me as a guest guitar player, So I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, well, I want you to play for an hour and do this song and that song. I said, well, what, do a whole set? He said, well, yeah. So, I was a little reluctant, really. Anyway, I came over and rehearsed. And we did the show, and I thought, boy, this is easier than I thought. I'd never been a front man before. I'd always been like a second singer or, someone's lead guitar player. So that was like over 25 years ago now, and I've been with this band, Hogan's Heroes, since then. Of course, we've been up here a few times too, I've been coming here since the mid-60s with Chris Farlow, but we played the Arts Centre not so long ago, and I'm sure we'll be back again, So let's see. Well, that kind of brings you up to date with what I've done over the years. I mean, I've played with lots of other people and done lots of sessions and whatever. They're the main milestones and things that I've done, I guess, But at the moment, I'm still doing Bill Wyman occasionally, and Hogan's Heroes a couple of times a year over here, and. Recently, after living in America for nearly 40 years, I've finally put together an American band. It took me long enough. So I'm actually working with those guys too now. So I've got two different bands, and I'm working more now than I've ever done. I'm doing well over 200 gigs a year, maybe a lot more. Right? But got to keep going. No patience in this business. Anyway, let me play